Welcome back, everybody, and today we are going to be talking about pensions. The reason why I'm doing this podcast is because more recently there have been many pensions aimed and targeted at physicians, and there's a lot of inaccuracies in how these pensions are being marketed and sold to physicians. And I wanted to make sure that physicians know exactly what they're getting into. A lot of these advertisement and marketing flyers say things that are positive about their pension plans, but don't really tell you the negative. Of course not. Of course they would not be doing that. But it behooves physicians to really truly understand before signing on the dotted line, because it is extremely difficult to get out of a pension plan afterwards. So if you think of the era of the cell phone plans, how difficult it was to get out of a plan, in terms of pensions, it is 3 times, 4 times, even 5 times more difficult. And so be sure you know what you are getting yourself into. And if not, please, there's no need to jump into anything. Do your due diligence. Here, we're going to take time to decorticate and truly take apart some pension plans and what they are marketing and what they are saying, but more importantly, what they are not saying. So it's important to truly understand. And as you know, I am the co-founder of the Canadian Physicians Pension Plan, and I'm also the president of the Canadian Physicians Pension Plan. So this being said, I am absolutely conflicted and have conflict of interest. So listen with attention, listen with a grain of salt. Please do your own analysis and be critical of what I am also saying. What I really want people to do is be critical and do your own due diligence. Today's episode is part 1 of a 3-part series on this topic. So please enjoy.
How's my financial health, Doc? Welcome to the Financial Literacy Podcast for Healthcare Professionals, where financial security and wealth topics are not a taboo.
Good, we're going. Okay, so good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the How is My Financial Health Doc podcast. And I am your host, Vuket Tran. Today, I've got back with me my good friend and my partner in crime, Mr. JP Laporte. JP, how are you?
Good morning. I'm great. Glad to be back.
Wonderful. So again, time for disclosure. Myself, I'm the president of the Canadian Physicians Pension Plan. And JP, you are?
The treasurer of the Canadian Physicians Pension Plan.
Okay, now it's important where you made this disclosure, because we're going to be talking about pensions today. But not only are we talking about pensions today, we're going to be talking about inaccuracies that are being promoted on social media, on the internet, on different advertisement post boards and stuff like that about pensions. And so we said, well, we need to make sure that the Canadian physicians understand this clearly and they're not being misunderstanding about any of these inaccuracies. So because we are going to be talking about pensions today, I wanted to make sure that we first and foremost disclose our conflicts. So let's talk about why we're doing this, JP. What was the reason? I kind of alluded to it, but what was your reason in doing this?
Well, it's just that physicians work so darn hard, and they're trying to save some money for retirement, especially if you're injured or you're ill, and the mechanism, the solution that you use for your retirement is so important. And what I really don't like is when I see in the press or on the internet promoters that are saying that, oh, you're going to get this, and that, and then they forget to mention some of the other elements of it. And they figure that, well, it's up to the physician to figure it out. And a lot of these problems that we're going to talk about today are extremely dangerous for the physician. We should at least give them a fighting chance. We should provide them with some information and then they can make their own decisions as to what type of solution they want to use.
I mean, in medicine, we call this educated consent, right? So if I'm gonna propose a treatment, a surgery, a regimen for chemotherapy, whatever it is, I want to make sure that my patient is fully educated on the pros and the cons, the nuances, and what are the alternatives. If I'm not taking regimen A, what are the alternatives or reasonable alternatives according to science and evidence-based medicine? So when we do that as physicians, we want to provide as much education and good education and unbiased education as possible. What we're currently seeing in the market are people putting advertisement out there saying things that are true, but sometimes they're not 100% true. And I've learned this over time that 50% of the truth is still the truth. It's just that you don't have the other 50%. So I think this is what we're trying to do is create that 50% of the truth so that physicians can really do their due diligence when they are going to be looking at joining a pension.
Well,
And yeah,
sorry, Vu, but there is such a thing called the sin of omission.
ah,
And I think that this is what I'm seeing a lot, is that certain details which are not really in their favor are not being publicized. If you find them, they're in extremely fine print. Now, I'm a lawyer, so I like fine print. I read fine, I create fine print, but most physicians are too busy. And so they miss the fine print. And then when it's too late, they say, well, it was there all along.
you know what? Detail is important.
Yeah.
Detail is important. Okay, so let's start with some of the things that we've been seeing and hearing. Okay, one of those things is, the promotion of multi-employer pension plans, and there's a few of them out there targeted to physicians, and these are what they're saying about themselves. So, multi-employer pension plan designed to provide predictable lifetime retirement income to its members, which is true. So let's kind of elaborate on why that is true and what's the fine print that was not said.
Yeah. So these, not all of them, but a few of these are multi-employer pension plans, but they're a special kind of multi-employer plan. They're called specified multi-employer pension plans. And again, unless you're like a pension lawyer, like myself, or an actuary, the likelihood that you will even know that this exists is usually quite low. So these solutions are specified multi-employer plans. And what those rules call for under the Income Tax Act is that the contributions, the amount of money that you're putting in, or that your medical corporation is putting in, is capped using what are called the defined contribution rules. So you do not have the ability, the way you do with an individual pension plan or a personal pension plan, to top up, to put extra money in the pension plan if the investment returns are not as good. So it kind of ties one hand behind your back, because in bad times, contrary to these other two solutions that I just mentioned, because you're capped as to how much money you're allowed to put into this specified plan, you cannot take advantage of the ability to throw in more money. And therefore, not only do you miss out on the tax deductions, you cannot ensure as well that you will have enough money in retirement. So you're causing the possibility that there will be a deficit at the end of the day.
So
So
what does that
then,
mean?
well, if there's a deficit and you're promised a fixed income, but there's not enough money in the pool, then you can have what are called reduced benefits. So these specified multi-employer plans have a special provision in them that says if there isn't enough money to pay the promised benefit, let's use round numbers. Let's say your annual pension is $100,000 a year. And let's say all the physicians have $100,000 a year pension owing to them. And for that, you need, I don't know, $1 billion inside the pension plan. But because the stock market took a beating, some events happening in geopolitical spheres, and instead of $1 billion, there's only $800 million in the plan. The pension plan administrators of this specified plan have the legal right to say, we're going to clip your your predictable defined pension, and instead of you getting $100,000 a year, we'll give you $80,000 a year.
But I was promised 100 when I joined.
Well, yeah, but you didn't read the fine print. That's what a multi-employer plan has. If you look in the regulations and the statute, it does give the administrators of that plan the power to arbitrarily reduce the accrued benefits, meaning that $100,000 promise that you're talking about, down to a level that's more sustainable given the state of affair, given how much money is actually in the pension fund.
Now, as the pensioner and the member, can I appeal this? Can I do anything about this?
No,
Once they've made the decision, is that final?
it's final. It's provided for in the regulations and in the not in the regulation, in the statute. There is a provision that says the administrator of a multi-employer plan are able to reduce the accrued benefits. It's black and
So,
white, so it's not up to interpretation.
okay. So this is where the fine print is actually extremely important here because it did say multi-employer pension plan designed to provide predictable lifetime retirement income to its members, but it doesn't tell me that they can unilaterally change this if the plan has a shortfall.
Well, again, because you're so busy as a physician, you probably didn't read the brochure that says that the benefits may be adjusted.
That's
They,
what adjusted meant then.
they didn't say adjusted downwards. They just wrote adjusted. If there's not enough money, benefits may be adjusted. And I thought, wow, that's a sin of omission. Like, why don't you just put adjusted downwards? Because that's
Right.
what's going to happen. That's what the statute, that's what the legislation allows them to do. So why would you put this word adjusted, right? Did you mean adjusted upwards? No. Well, if it's going somewhere, it's going downwards, right?
So if I give an example, just so that I truly understand this and the audience understand this. So let's say whatever happened in 2008, that market downfall, happens again in 2026, let's say a year and a half from now. And I happen to be retiring at that point. I'm a 67-year-old physician and I wanted to retire, but now the market just lost 30%. We lost 30% of our assets in the pool. Then the administrators can say, yeah, Vu, instead of giving you the 100 grand that we promised, we're now giving you 80, 85, 90, whatever it is, that based on the amount of people retiring that year. Is this how I am understanding this?
Yes. The administrators of the plan who are responsible for paying that fixed pension, I gave the example of $100,000 a year, have the power to reduce the benefits you're collecting if there's not enough money in the pension plan, in the pension fund, to sustain that level of benefit.
So they made it sound like the individual pension plans, so the IPPs of the world, have the same problem. So the question is, do they?
Well, they could and they couldn't. There are ways to mitigate that when you're using an individual pension plan or a personal pension plan. First of all, you can always, when you contribute money to these plans, you could purchase deferred annuities. So you transfer the investment risk to an insurance company who contractually promises that defined benefit through the annuity. So there is a way to immediately remove that risk. So that's kind of a bit misleading to say that it's like that. But the other way is if you don't use annuities for whatever reason, you don't have to, of course, you could also buy or invest in assets that are extremely safe, like guaranteed income certificates or government bonds or things which there's a contractual promise to pay you a return in return of your principal. Even in the stock market tanks, like you were giving the example of 2008, if I'm 100% invested in bonds and GICs and the stock market tanks, I'm not suffering. I'm going to be at whatever, +4, +5%. Everyone else is at -30. I'm at +5. So if the pension plan is invested in that manner, not only will it not lose any capital, the laws allow the medical corporation to top up the pension plan to make additional tax deductible contributions that we call special payments so that the plan is fully funded. Now, you might be saying, yeah, but that's a problem. I may not have the money at the time. I like, to me, you're saying it's going to cost more. Yes and no. Yes, depending on how you've invested your corporate assets. If you have money sitting in a corporate investment account and it's highly taxed, as you may recall from some of your other podcasts, the Ontario tax rate on passive corporate income is inside the medical corporation is 50.17%. So having money growing inside of that corporation is really tax inefficient. So instead of having it there, the solution often is let's transfer that inside the pension plan. Because when you put money in the pension plan, you get a tax deduction. So the corporation doesn't suffer a tax problem by having contributed those corporate assets inside the pension plan. And now you fully funded your pension, and you'll have enough money to sustain that $100,000 a year promised pension, because you've got the combination of Fort Knox like investments, stuff that's not going to lose money, and you've got these special payments. And then, of course, remember what I just said at the very beginning, you can also annuitize and use annuities to transfer the risk off the balance sheet to a life insurance company. So there are many ways to make those pensions truly solid. But to say that the IPP and PPP is exactly like a multi-employer plan is just, in my view, completely misleading.
So I'm understanding one thing here, in particular to this particular topic here, is that in a case where, there's a shortfall in the plan, inside a specified multi-employer pension plan, they have one mechanism, and that mechanism is to adjust downward the retirement income to the pensioners. Inside an IPP format, there are several. We don't have to name all of them, but you just name three: buying an annuity, investing in capital preservation type of assets, or doing special payments. So there are some mechanism to correct that and maintain your retirement income without being adjusted downward. That's what I understand then.
Yeah, and we also have, if all else fails, we can also reduce benefits as well.
Correct. But that's what we wanted to avoid in the first place.
I know. I'm just saying that if everything else fails, it's not like we can't do that.
Correct. But at least that decision is made by us inside an IPP or PPP.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Whereas in the specified multi-employer plan, that decision is made by the administrator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
which is not us.
It's a central pool, right? It's a confederation of different medical professional corporations all coming together under one single pool. So the administrators of that pool are the ones that are calling the shots, not the physician. Not the individual.
Okay, so you just brought up another great point here, is that inside that pool, inside that specified multi-employer plan, the physicians actually lose all control.
Oh, of course. It's contribute and forget, trust the experts, which is often a good thing to do. If you're a teacher, if you're a civil servant, trusting the experts is great because they typically have higher rates of return. But here, if something goes wrong, there is no ability to do top-up special payments because it's a specified multi-employer plan. Whereas if you're a teacher, if you're a civil servant, and the experts make a mistake when it comes to investing, the government, the school boards, whoever is the sponsor of the defined benefit plan will cough up the extra cash. So it's very different. They look alike, but they're very different underneath the hood.
Okay, this is you keep bringing up important points that I can't even go to the next point.
Okay.
So here's the point that you brought up. If the administrators and the investors made a bad decision and they lost money, in the case of the teachers, the nurses, the government workers, the shortfall is being met by those institutions, the teachers union, the nurses union, and the federal government. But in the case of a SMEP for physicians, can the physicians or will the physicians be asked to make it up, or that's not even in the structure?
It's not possible. The contributions are capped at 18% of salary. There is no mechanism to throw more money in the way that you can with an IPP or a PPP. Or if you are in a large normal defined benefit plan like Hoop or teachers or
Nurses.
OMERS.
So while it is called a multi-employer pension plan, it is a specified multi-employer pension plan, and it definitely does not act like the pension plan like the teachers, the nurses, Hoop, and OMERS.
Correct. And if I may, there's another specified multi-employer plan out there that's being promoted mainly to physicians, but also to other professionals. And it has an extra rule in it that says that once you sign up, you must stay with them for a minimum of 10 years. You don't even have the right to pull out if the returns are bad, if you're losing money, you don't, contractually in the fine print, it says you cannot pull out before an expiration of 10 years has elapsed. Imagine if someone came to you and says, hey, open up this RRSP, and in the first year they lost all your money, and then you said, oh, well, I'm going to move my money out, I'm going to fire this guy, and they said, no, you signed here for 10 years. Imagine. Well, this is the kind of fine print that I'm seeing, and I just shake my head and like, those poor physicians, way too busy with their job, they're not reading this fine print.
Well, this is why we are discussing this. Two things I've taken out of this, just one point alone. One, with this specified multi-employer pension plan, physicians lose total control. Two, there is no other mechanism other than downward adjustment to my pension income if there's a gap and shortfall in the assets of the pool.
Well,
there is no other mechanism other than adjusting downwards.
Well, there is one which we'll get to, I think, and you're not going to like it.
I don't want to hear about it until then.
But it requires people to die. So we'll get to that concept a little bit later on.
Yes, because it's a very important concept that we must reserve it for its own. But you did say it. It requires people to die, which is not good. So now let's go to point number 2, and this is easy. Okay, so this is a fine point, but they made this sound like they're the only ones. Like, come and trust us and do this because we're the only one that does this, which is not true. So here's what they're saying. Pension benefits is calculated based on a formula and accrued for each year of participation in the plan.
Yeah, well, that's exactly how an IPP or a PPP works. There's a formula in the plan text, and you accrue service for each year that you're on salary. So, I mean, why would they say that they're the only ones? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think they're saying that, well, this is how good we are, right? But they neglect to say that there's an alternative that also does that. Okay, so here's the next one. Very similar in nature and how they position this. Members don't need to worry about outliving their pension benefits. At retirement, these will be paid monthly for the rest of their lives.
Well, that's exactly how IPPs and PPPs work.
Okay, so no difference there.
No, it's no different.
Point number 4. Contributions to the plan are made by physicians' professional corporation and are generally tax deductible. Okay, so let's dive a little bit into that. What are the things they're not saying?
Well, what the sin of omission here is that they're failing to say that if you have an IPP or a PPP, the medical corporation contributions are typically 3 times larger than under a specified multi-employer pension plan, and of course are also tax deductible. That's a very material difference that is quietly skimmed over.
Right. So this is where I say where 50% of the truth is still the truth, but the other 50% is actually quite important. So in the SMEP, specified multi-employer pension plan, the contributions are tax deductible, and they're calculated based on, you said, 18%.
Yeah, 18% of salary or T4, not to exceed what's called the money purchase limit for the year, which is the defined contribution limit.
Okay. So why the IPPs and PPPs can give up to 3 times larger than the amount of the specified multi-employer pension plan? Where does the 3 times come from? What are the mechanisms that allows it?
Yeah. So we have a whole series of additional contributions beyond the annual contributions when you're using either an IPP or a PPP. And very quickly, I'm not going to get into the details. We've had other podcasts where we went through all of these, and I don't want to waste too much time, but just listing them off. We can do a buyback of past service contribution for all the years that the doctor received salaries from their medical corporation. We can do special payments. We've already alluded to those if the rate of return is below 7.5%. We can do a top up, not a top up, a special contribution in the first year to the RRSP on top of the pension contribution, which is we call the double dip. We can also do terminal funding, which is the ability to accelerate tax deductions if the physician decided to turn on the pension ahead of schedule. So, and then there are a bunch of other deductions that aren't contributions, but they're deductions which, don't apply in the specified multi-employer plan context. So when you add all that up over time, it's very, very, it's often the case that the physician is tripling, sometimes even quadrupling what they could have deducted had they been in a specified plan.
Now,
Huge difference.
now, out of all the things that you mentioned, one of them is particularly relevant to me and my colleagues right now, because we are in a catastrophic crisis state of burnout among physicians. And I believe that this, state of crisis will persist for a long, long time. And one of the mechanisms that I propose to fight this burnout is through some financial addition to our plan, which is called terminal funding. Now, I don't want to go through the concept of terminal funding here because we've had podcast on it before. But my question to you, JP, is can a SMEP allow terminal funding
No,
to sort of as a mechanism to combat burnout? Can
no,
a SMEP do this?
no, because that would exceed the 18% limit.
So in the terminal funding is a good chunk of funds that could be put into the plan, and that's where it contributes to the 3 times, 4 times amount that you were talking about, in addition to the other mechanisms that are available. But terminal funding is not possible inside a specified multi-employer pension plan.
No,
And that is, in my mind, one of the major downfalls of these SMEPs.
Yeah, and a lot of pension plans don't have this terminal funding. A classic defined contribution pension plan doesn't allow it either. It's foreign to those concepts. So it's an extremely powerful tax planning tool, retirement planning tool. But if you don't have it in your toolkit because you selected a specified plan, then you don't get all those advantages, which is probably why the marketing material doesn't even talk about it. Why would they highlight something that they don't offer and they cannot offer?
I mean, I've learned in my career, don't ask questions that you cannot answer.
Yeah. Well,
So if you don't have an answer for it, don't put it out there.
yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to the next point. So with this specified multi-employer pension plan, contributions made by your professional corporation are pooled across all participants and invested into one single pension fund governed by an administrative board.
Yeah, which is what we were saying earlier. So you have complete loss of control by the physician over their own money, which for some physician, that may be what they want. They don't want the control. They just say, you know what, like I'm too busy. I trust you. Here's my money, and please do a good job.
Well, I think I'm gonna maybe nuance that, JP. Some physicians don't want to deal with the headache of the management, but trust me, physicians want control. This is what I've learned in med school, and this is what I've learned in my profession throughout my career is we don't want to be bothered by things that we don't want to bother about. But when you take control out of their lives, then they start being upset.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think physicians have an illusion that they don't want control, but deep down inside they like the autonomy because that's who we are. We are professionals. We self-govern and we have autonomy. So when you take control out of the physician's hand, they become upset. What they don't want is the day-to-day headache management of some things. So I think we need to nuance that. And inside a specified multi-employer pension plan, while it's great that they manage the day-to-day headache, but they do actually take away your authority to make decisions.
Yeah, and if they don't do a good job, they just clip your benefits and pay you less.
Okay, gentlemen and ladies, we are going to pause here because this is a very long conversation and we've cut it into 3 parts. So this is the first part. I hope you have enjoyed so far, and I hope you will join us for part 2 and part 3. And so I will look for you guys next time. And please, if you like this podcast, share it with your friends, with family, colleagues, and your pets. And I will see you guys next time. If you have any comments or feedback, please leave them with me at hmfhd2020@gmail.com.
How is My Financial Health, Doc? Podcast is hosted by Dr. Vukit Tran. Dr. Tran is a physician with a special interest in personal financial security and wealth education. Dr. Tran does not render or offer to render personalized investment or tax advice through this financial podcast. The information provided is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial, tax, investment, or legal advice. Please confer with your advisor, lawyer, or accountant for specific advice.